Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. My name is Ashley Lusher. I'm the Gift Shop and Programs Coordinator at the Pajarito Environmental Education Center, or better known as PEEC, located here in Los Alamos. And I'm going to be the moderator for this afternoon's talk. Thank you for joining us for Animal Astronomy. Our speaker is Laura Marseglia. Laura is currently a college student studying radiation projection, which involves keeping people safe from nuclear materials. She discovered her interest in astronomy by volunteering at an observatory and hopes to make the universe accessible to everyone. So without further ado, I will let Laura take the stage.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. So today, as Ashley said, I will be covering animal astronomy, which is looking at different constellations that look like animals. So here's what I'll be talking about today. Kind of an overview of what is a constellation and things like that. And then I'll be splitting up the talk into wintertime constellations and summertime. Let's get started. So what is a constellation? It is basically a group of stars. They tend to be bright stars that look like a thing. It could be a person, right? Like Orion, or maybe Hercules. It could be an animal, or it could be an object. Like this one is called sextants, and it's a sextant, which is a device that mariners and sailors used way back when, before compasses were invented, to be able to navigate when they were on the ocean. Another object is telescopium, which is a telescope. Now, asterisms are kind of like a cousin to constellations. It's a group of stars that looks like a thing but isn't a constellation. So, for example, the Big Dipper is part of a constellation, and the Summer Triangle over here is 3 stars from separate constellations that still makes a thing. So that's where that comes from. One last note, cardinal directions. So these are like north, south, east, and west. And this is how we talk about where things are in the sky. Because you can't always say by that tree over there, because if you're in a different space, when you go stargazing every time, your landmarks are going to be different. So we talk about things in the sky using these. So a way to figure out where the cardinal directions are, if you don't have a compass or a phone or something, is to remember where the sun rises and where the sun sets. So the sun always rises in the morning in the east and always sets in the evening in the west. So if you position yourself where your right-hand side is to the east, where the sun rises, and your left-hand side is to where the sun sets in the west, then north will be in front of you and the south will be behind you. So that's a good way to kind of orient yourself. And then directions in between are a combination of the main 4 cardinal directions. So like northwest is between north and west. Southeast is between south and east, and so on. So before I go on to wintertime constellations, are there any questions so far?
Ooh, it's the perfect chance to practice asking questions. So if you have a question, you can write it in the chat box at the bottom, or you can turn on your video and raise your hand and I will call on you and you can ask your question out loud. But does anybody have any questions so far? I don't see any at this time. So I think we're ready to move on to winter constellations.
Awesome, let's do it. So let's start with Canis Major. So I'm going to switch to Stellarium here. So this program, if you guys have seen some of the evening time Friday night presentations, I've used this before. And so this is showing right now, actually. So the sun is over here in the west-southwest part of the sky, and I'm going to advance the hour, right? So now we see sunset, and this is what the sky looks like tonight. So I'm going to actually turn the month back a little bit to talk about wintertime constellations. And I'm going to turn on the lines, the names, and let's do the art as well. So the first one I wanted to talk about was Sirius, or rather Canis Major, sorry. The bright star Sirius here is part of Canis Major. Sirius is actually the brightest star in the whole sky that we can see, which is really cool. So that's one great way to find this constellation. So the story goes that Sirius is, or rather, Canis, is a dog and is the assistant, so to say, for Orion, the hunter, right? So you can find Orion here with the 3 stars in his belt. And then actually, if you draw a line through these stars and down, you get to Sirius. So that's how you can find Canis Major. So Canis would often help Orion hunt Lepus, the hare, and also over here, Taurus, the bull. And side note, Canis Major has a little brother, Canis Minor, over here. And they both help Orion hunt some of the nearby other constellations. Let's see. Next, we're going to talk about Ursa Major, the big bear. She is over in the northern part of the sky. So if we're going all the way from the south, all the way over to the northeast, we get to see Ursa Major. As I said, she's the big bear, and her tail and the back half of her body actually makes up the Big Dipper, right? The asterism, the Big Dipper. She has a cub, Ursa Minor, over here, whose tail has Polaris, the North Star. So let me show you guys, let me zoom out a bit and advance time. So you can see that all of the other constellations and stars and everything else in the sky seems to travel around Polaris here, this star. That's the North Star. That's where Earth's axis is pointing. And so all the other stars seem to move around that. Now, let me go back a little bit here because I wanted to also point out that Ursa Major is a constellation that is circumpolar, as is Ursa Minor. And so circumpolar, the word means that it is above the horizon all the time throughout the year. So that's where that name comes from, which I think is really cool. And so let's see, what did I want to talk about? The mythology. So Ursa Major, where does she come from? She's female. Ursa Minor is her cub. And a woman called Callisto was punished and turned into a bear by Jupiter's wife, Juno. There was some jealousy going on there. And so as punishment, Callisto was put into the sky as a bear. Next one I wanted to talk about is Cancer, the crab. So Cancer is kind of down here a little bit. Ursa Major's feet kind of point to Cancer. And so Cancer by itself, let me turn off the constellation art here. Cancer is a very simple constellation. Its body is here, front claws are out this way, and then back feet out behind it. So yes, and it's his pincers or claws, I don't know how you call them, face kind of up toward Ursa Major. So that's kind of an easy way to find it. The mythology is a giant crab. So Cancer was a giant crab that attacked Hercules. Hercules is, let's see. So if we turn time to May, we can see Hercules over here. Hercules was a hunter, kind of like Orion, and Hercules had to, he was constantly fighting with Cancer. And so that's why they're in opposite parts of the sky as the mythology goes. They were separated by the gods for that reason. So then the last one I wanted to talk about is Leo, the lion. Leo is over here. Let's make him a little more upright. There we go, lovely. So here's Leo the lion. And let's turn off constellation art. So the way to find Leo in the sky is to kind of look for this backwards question mark here. So his head and mane is up here, outlined by the top part. And then the brightest star, what is this one called? Regulus. The bright star Regulus is kind of the point in the question mark. And then his body and tail and back legs are out here. So the best way to find him tonight, maybe tomorrow night, is to look for the moon. Leo is right around where the moon is tonight, which is cool. And so Leo's story is that he was also killed by Hercules. They had to fight, and Leo was killed by Hercules around the same time as when Hercules fought with Cancer the Crab. Leo also has a little brother called Leo Minor. In other mythology, some people also say that she is Leanna. I'm not entirely sure how you say that name, but the lioness, so that they are kind of a hunting pair together. So that's all I wanted to talk about for the winter constellations. Are there any questions before we move on to the summertime ones?
Yes, we had somebody ask, what is the app you're using? Is it Stellarium?
Yes, it's Stellarium. You can go to, I think it's stellarium.org, and there's ways to download it there.
All right. So anybody at home could download this app and play around with it on their own computer.
Yes, it's totally free, which is nice.
Oh, that's wonderful. Perfect. And
Yeah.
then I had a question.
Sure.
Of the constellation we've looked at so far, which one's your favorite?
I really like Ursa Major and Minor because they are so interesting. Right, Ursa Major is circumpolar, which means over the course of the whole year, they stay above the horizon. And then Ursa Minor has Polaris in it. So kind of the whole sky revolves around these guys, which I think is really cool.
Nice. Perfect. Well, I think that's all the questions we have so far.
Cool, good. So now let's talk about summertime constellations. We're going to start with Cygnus the Swan. So let me advance time here a little bit to, let's say, end of June. And we're going to look in the eastern sky and find Cygnus. Cygnus the Swan has, let's see, let's turn off constellation art. So Cygnus kind of looks like this big, huge cross, right? We have his head over here. This star is actually called Albireo. It is a beautiful binary star, which means that there are two stars that are gravitationally bound together. And they have really distinct colors in this Albireo specifically. So if you have good binoculars or even a telescope, you could definitely take a look at this. It's always worth a look. So his head is Albireo here, his neck and body, and the brightest star in this constellation is his tail. It's called Deneb. And then his wings go out on either side. So another way to find Cygnus is in towards the middle of summer, right, when it's above the horizon enough. We can look for Vega. This is the brightest star in the summertime. And Sirius, the part of the dog star, is the brightest star in the wintertime. So anyway, we can look for Vega, and right near Vega is Cygnus the Swan. There's actually many different kind of origin stories for how Cygnus came to be in the sky. One of them is that Zeus disguised himself as a swan to fall in love with a woman called Leda. Another story is that a man named Orpheus was killed, transformed into a swan, and placed next to Lyra, his lyre, the harp. So that's another one. The last one I found is that Phaethon, I think is how you say it, was the son of Helios, the sun god. And so Phaethon demanded to ride Helios's sun chariot, but he couldn't control it. It was notoriously difficult to kind of pilot. And so Phaethon ended up dying. He fell into a river. And so Phaethon's close friend or lover, depending on who you believe, and his friend was called Cygnus. He was mourning, and he searched for Phaethon to give him a proper funeral. He didn't want to just leave him there, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And so the gods kind of noticed how devoted Cygnus was to Phaethon. And so they made him into a constellation as kind of an expression of appreciation. So I thought that was really cool. What did I want to talk about next? Oh, Aquila. It's right near Cygnus, actually. Aquila the eagle. So Altair is the bright star in Aquila, part of his head or neck. And we have his body coming out, and again, wings. So Aquila is the eagle. And actually, these three bright stars, Altair, Vega, and Deneb, actually make up the summer triangle. It's another asterism that I brought up earlier. So the myth behind Aquila is that he carried the thunderbolts for Zeus, if in Greek mythology, or Jupiter in Roman mythology. He was also sent by Zeus to find a boy called Ganymede, who would become a wine pourer, kind of servant for the gods. Now, you might recognize the name Ganymede. That is one of the planet Jupiter's largest moons. Let's see, the next one I wanted to talk about is Pegasus. Pegasus is a winged horse, and we actually we can see his feet right now, actually. So if we look, this is almost an autumn constellation, either that or late at night during the summer. But so Pegasus, his head is up here, his front feet are over here, right? And then his wings kind of go out this way. They're not really in the constellation. And his back feet and tail kind of just fade away. And so one way to find Pegasus is to look for this big, huge square in the sky. It's actually called the Great Square of Pegasus for that reason. It almost looks like a baseball diamond. And so what's this? So the story of Pegasus is he is immortal. He was born from Poseidon and Medusa. So Perseus killed Medusa by beheading her, and then Pegasus was born from Medusa's neck. He was tamed by a person called Bellerophon, and then when they died, Zeus had Pegasus kind of pull his thunderbolt chariot. And after many years of service, Zeus put Pegasus into a constellation as an expression of gratitude for many years of service. Next, I'm going to talk about Pisces. These are the two fish that are actually right below Pegasus. They're where his back feet should be. So Pisces are two fish that are tied together with this cord at their tails. And let's see. Yep, they're in the eastern sky in the autumn. And the story goes that Aphrodite and Eros are the two fish that transformed to escape a monster, Typhon, that was pursuing them. Their tails are joined by this cord, like I said, and they're facing different directions, trying to swim in opposite ways. And that's kind of signifying the duality of nature a little bit. Like life, you can't have life without death. They're, inevitably connected to each other. Other constellations I wanted to mention. So we mentioned a couple of these. We mentioned Lepus the rabbit and Taurus the bull. Another one right here is Aries, the ram, which is a male sheep. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? We can talk about Camelopardus is a giraffe. And I honestly didn't know that, or make the connection in my head until today, that Camelopardus was a giraffe and that we have a giraffe as one of our constellations. So I think that's really cool. We also have here the lynx, which is cool. And now we're getting back into the wintertime constellations. We have over here, let's see, Draco the dragon. So not technically an animal, but certainly not a person, that's for sure. Let's go back to the summer triangle. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So, that was too far. Here they are. So in between the summer triangle here is Vulpecula, the fox. And just below it is Delphinus the dolphin. And so that's kind of my measure of how good your skies are, because Delphinus, the stars in Delphinus are very dim. So if you are able to see him, that means that you found a really good spot for stargazing. Also over here is Lacerta, kind of a little lizard, which reminds me of, I forget their name, but the lizards that exist all over northern New Mexico. And so yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about. Ashley, I assume you know the name for the lizards that exist up here.
We have quite a few lizards. There's the fence lizards, the western fence lizards, a picket fence lizard, sometimes what they're called.
Okay.
But we also have the whip-tailed lizards.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
They're pretty common, but our state reptile is actually the New Mexico whip-tailed lizard.
Cool. So, there are a couple more that I didn't mention. Let me find Scorpius, the scorpion, which is over here. He has the bright star Antares. And let me see if I can. He's right near Sagittarius, which kind of looks like a teapot. So Antares, if you're just looking at him, he has 3 kind of prongs here where his pincers would be. And then out the back, he has the curling tail, very ominous. Monoceros, the unicorn. Let's see if I can find him. Corvus the crow down here. Let me find, though, Monoceros, which literally means single mono horn, ceros. Let's see. There he is. In the eastern sky in wintertime. There he is, right between Canis Major and Canis Minor. So those were all the animals, constellations that I wanted to talk about. Are there any questions?
Does anybody else have a question? Remember, you can write it in the chat, or you can turn on your video and ask right out loud. I know I wanted to say, I love that you talked about the giraffe. Me and some friends found the giraffe constellation years back and always pronounced it as Camelopardalis, never knowing the correct pronunciation. And it's so difficult to say, we always just referred to it as the space giraffe.
I like that.
It was a favorite of ours for years and years.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any questions come up. How do scientists discover constellations? Where do they come from? And are new constellations still becoming official, or has the night sky been solidified?
So most of the constellations, like the people and a lot of the animals, are have been talked about by like Greek and Roman astronomers way back when. So a lot of them have been named from a long time ago, but actually, Leanna, Leo Minor, that's been reinstated relatively recently. So the goal of astronomers as time went on in the 1900s, they wanted to establish kind of boundaries for each constellation as their telescopes got better, and they wanted to be able to describe where they were looking in the sky. So there were some kind of blank spots. So they created some new constellations to talk about where in the sky they wanted to look. And kind of a side note to that, there are 88 constellations total, 30 in the northern hemisphere, and that means there are 58 in the southern hemisphere. So if you go below the equator, right, maybe to Australia or South America, you'll see a totally different set of constellations. I myself haven't had that opportunity yet, but that is a thing I would definitely like to do. Very
That
interesting.
is so cool that they have their own complete different set of constellations. How interesting.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions coming in at this time. So I think that about wraps us up for today.
Cool. Well, I hope
Well,
you guys
thank you
enjoyed.
everybody for joining us. And a big thank you to Laura for sharing all this amazing knowledge with all of us today. But thank you all so much and have a great day.
Thank you guys.